We've talked already about classes, that they are essentially blueprints, and from those blueprints we can create instances of that class, which we refer to as the objects, and we can then work with those particular instances, those particular objects, independently and separately. However, we can also have, and this is quite neat, we can have classes that are based on other classes. And in object-oriented programming, this is known as inheritance. So to go back to our example of the ambulance, we could have a class called ambulance that's created independently. However, we could also have a class called vehicle, and ambulance could be inherited from vehicle because it is a type of vehicle. And this could be particularly useful if we're building something where, for example, we may have lots of different types of vehicle, and so we want to create lots of classes that are similar but have their own sort of quirks. For this example, we could have a class that was called vehicle, and that could have attributes and methods that apply to all kinds of vehicles, or to all the kinds of vehicles that we want to represent in our code. And then we could create from that an ambulance class that inherits those attributes and methods, but also adds its own things that are specific to ambulances. So in this example here, we could imagine having a vehicle class, and we could say, well, all vehicles will have a registration number, and all vehicles in terms of methods will be able to drive and park. And so we could then create a class called ambulance that inherits from vehicle and says, well, ambulance is basically a type of vehicle. And the advantage of doing that is it means that we don't have to redefine the things that are already defined in vehicle. So we can say, well, ambulance inherits from vehicle. So therefore, in terms of the attributes, everything in vehicle gets carried across. So we don't need to redefine that it has a registration number. We've already defined that in vehicle because all vehicles have a registration number. But we will add in some things that are ambulance specific, like whether there's a patient on board and whether the siren's going off. And similarly for methods, an ambulance drives and parks just like any other vehicle, so we can inherit that from vehicle, but it also has stuff that is unique to an ambulance, like loading and unloading patients or turning on and off the siren. And it saves us having to redefine all these things that may be common for a number of different classes. And it makes it much more efficient if we've got classes, multiple classes that are similar. So you won't always use inheritance. It depends what you're trying to do and what you're trying to represent. But if you have got classes where there are a lot of similarities and you find yourself thinking, well, I'm having to redefine the same thing multiple times, you may want to consider using inheritance. And in inheritance, in this example here, ambulance inherits from vehicle. And vehicle is known as the parent and ambulance as the child. So vehicle is the parent class and ambulance as the child inherits from vehicle, from the parent. And of course that means that we could then have lots of other different types of class, of vehicle class that inherit from the parent vehicle. So as well as an ambulance, we could also have a bus that is its own class, but which inherits from vehicle. So again, a bus would inherit the fact it has a registration number, but a bus may then have a passenger capacity that we want to store. And similarly, it will drive and park just like any other vehicle, but we may also have bus-specific methods like opening and closing the doors or taking the fare. And similarly, we might create a car class that is based off vehicle, inherits a registration number. A car's got a registration number, but we might also want to store the number of doors for a car. And in terms of methods, well, it'll drive and park, but we might also want to open and close the boot, for example. Okay, so the key thing is that you've got a kind of a parent class that has stuff that is common to all of these child classes. And then these child classes inherit that stuff, plus add their own little spin on it.